Thank you. Well, thanks to Bidenomics, Montanans are spending, on average, $1,100 more per month than they were before President Biden took office. Inflation's high, interest rates are high, home prices are high, making home buying nearly impossible for the average American. It's getting harder and harder to live in our beautiful state, not to mention to build savings for themselves and their children's future. In fact, just last month, I attended an inflation roundtable with local Montanans in Billings who shared this same concern. In fact, Montana has the third highest home price-to-income ratio in the entire United States, reflecting the lasting impact inflation's had. Wages aren't keeping up with housing prices, in part due to the reckless spending we've seen from this administration. Interesting to note that Kamala Harris has broken more ties as vice president than any vice president in our nation's history. She's now the gold medalist. She surpassed both John Calhoun and John Adams. We've had 47 vice presidents. She's number one in tie-breaking votes after just a little over 3 years, and both Calhoun and Adams served 8-year terms. Some of these tie votes have been massively consequential in terms of spending. Nearly $4 trillion, where every Republican voted no on that massive COVID spending package. Every Republican voted no on the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, totaling nearly $4 trillion when looking over a 10-year horizon. And Kamala Harris broke the tie to allow both of those massive spending bills to pass. Owning a home is one of the top ways that people build long-term wealth for themselves and their families. I grew up in the home construction business. My dad was, in fact, still is a life director at the National Association of Home Builders. Dad turns 85 next month, and he's a proud home builder. It's how we kept food on the table. In his State of the Union address, President Biden proposed trillions of dollars in misguided housing subsidies. This tax and spend agenda will do nothing to fix this problem, but only make it more expensive for Montana families. These tax credits just throw money at one problem to distract from costs rising elsewhere, creating an endless Democrat-driven spending cycle. Dr. Michelle, can you explain why the housing policies outlined in President Biden's State of the Union address are harmful?
Thank you for the question, Senator. The fundamental premise of new tax credits, as proposed by President Biden, is it's going after the wrong problem. The housing market housing costs are elevated because there's a supply constraint on builders because of costs of inputs, because of local and state regulations of where you can build and what type of building you can do. And so instead of throwing money at the problem on the demand side, we'll only inflate prices if you can't expand supply. And so reform should be focused on the supply side. How do we build more houses? How do we make it easier for people to build? That's where these efforts should be focused. Throwing money at the problem simply makes the concerns of inflation and the rest of what you've highlighted just that much worse.
I saw, it was Jamie Dimon here a few weeks ago on Wall Street Journal, talked about how he sees interest rates may actually stay closer to 8% over the longer haul. For various reasons, but one of the reasons he suggested was where monetary policy driven by the Fed starts to take more of a secondary position to fiscal out-of-control policy here, driven by massive deficits and debt here in Washington, as, of course, those who buy our debt every day at the debt auctions, the rates will have to be maybe inching upwards to keep our debt attractive to buyers. And this is, again, a real concern that ties right back to the housing problem around why rates may indeed stay higher for longer periods of time, which pushes a lot of people out of middle-income families out of the market. me just say this in closing. I don't think Americans can afford these dangerous policies. We should incentivize taxpayers putting their savings toward their home purchases rather than continuing down an irresponsible path of out-of-control spending this administration has started. I appreciate the chairman's interest in supporting children. I hope we can work together in passing my Child Tax Credit for Pregnant Moms Act to do just that. Thanks for the conversation. I yield back.
I thank my colleague, and we're going to go to Senator Bennett in a second, but just let us reflect for a quick second on the fact that if the Senate wants to take a pro-growth step quickly with research and development and bonus depreciation policies that there is enormous support for in the business community, got 357 votes. All we got to do is pull a bill down from the House of Representatives, got 357 votes, and figure out how to work together and pass something that is pro-growth and paid for, every single nickel paid for. So I'm interested in working with my colleague and, of course, the ranking member.